Hello, friends. It's getting close to Halloween, so I thought you might enjoy a story. A true story about history, about werewolves. So, let's set the mood. Spray a little calming chamomile and lavender so you don't get too scared. And I will give you some pampering while I tell you this amazing story. Are you ready? Here goes. The werewolf trials. Then, medieval courts. Hunted human wolves. In the shadows of Europe's infamous witch trials lurked an equally chilling phenomenon: the werewolf trials. During the 16th and 17th centuries, hundreds of people, predominantly men, of course, faced execution for allegedly transforming into wolves and committing horrific acts of violence. Unlike the satirical werewolf tales we enjoy today, these cases were deadly serious, resulting in torture, confessions, and brutal executions that devastated communities and families across France, Germany, and Switzerland. The werewolf trials reflected a unique intersection of legal proceedings, religious fervor, and cultural fears. While witch trials typically targeted women, accused of causing misfortune through supernatural means, werewolf trials focused on acts of violence and cannibalism, particularly against children. The accused were often social outcasts, wanderers, or impoverished individuals living on society's margins. Many confessed, usually under torture, to using magical salves provided by the devil, rolling naked in the grass to perform, or wearing enchanted wolf pelts that granted them the ability to shapeshift. What makes these historical cases particularly fascinating is how they blend supernatural beliefs with documented crimes. Many trials, like those detailed in the following excerpt from 16th century France, included specific dates, locations, and victim names. The authorities approached these cases with complete seriousness, establishing precise legal procedures for investigating and prosecuting suspected werewolves. Hold still, I'm just going to cut some of your brows, they're kind of long. Courts would carefully document physical evidence, such as wounds from dog attacks, mysterious salves, and tragically human remains. Modern historians and researchers now recognize these trials as complex events driven by multiple factors. Some cases likely involved actual criminals using werewolf mythology as a cover for their crimes, while others point to mental illness, particularly a condition now known as clinical lycanthropy, where individuals generally believe they transform into wolves. Other contributing factors may have included poisoning from contaminated rye, which can cause hallucinations, the misidentification of actual wolf attacks, and the prosecution of social outcasts during times of hardship. Let's fix this just a little bit more. The following excerpt provides a chilling glimpse into several notable French werewolf trials, including the case of Pierre Bourgault and Michael Verdun. In 1521, the infamous Gilles Garnier, known as the Hermit of S. Bonnet, the tragic Gendulin family, and the peculiar case of Jacques Roulette. These accounts documented in historical court records showcase not only the period's brutal approach to justice, but also glimpses of recognizing mental illness, as seen in Roulette's case, where he was sentenced to a madhouse rather than execution. Now we're going to buff your nails a little bit and then paint them. A surprisingly modern decision for the time. Chamber 4's Pierre Bourgault and Michael Verdun, the Hermit of S. Bonnet, Gendulin family, Vivian Paget, the Tailor of Chalons, Roulette. Case 1, Pierre Bourgault and Michael Verdun, 1521. In December 1521, the Inquisitor General for the Diocese of Vechnon, Berlin by name, heard a case of a sufficiently terrible nature to produce a profound sensation of alarm in the neighborhood. 2 men were under accusation of witchcraft and cannibalism. Their names were Pierre Bourgault, or Peter the Great, as people had nicknamed him from his stature, and Michael Verdun. Peter had not been long under trial before he volunteered a full confession of his crimes. It amounted to this. About 19 years before, on the occasion of a New Year's market at Poligny, a terrible storm had broken over the country, and among other mischiefs done by it was the scattering of Pierre's flock. In vain, said the prisoner, did I labor in company with other peasants to find the sheep and bring them together. I went everywhere in search of them. Then there rode up 3 black horsemen, and the last said to me, "Whither away? You seem to be in trouble." I related to him my misfortune with my flock. He bade me pluck up my spirits and promised that his master would henceforth take charge of and protect my flock if I would only rely upon him. He told me that I should find my strayed sheep very shortly, and he promised to provide me with money. We agreed to meet again in 4 or 5 days. My flock I soon found collected together. At my second meeting, I learned of the stranger that he was a servant of the devil. I forswore God and Our Lady and all saints and dwellers in paradise. I renounced Christianity, kissed his left hand, which was black and ice cold as that of a corpse. Then I fell on my knees and gave my allegiance to Satan. I remained in the service of the devil for 2 years and never entered a church before the end of Mass, or at all events, till the holy water had been sprinkled according to the desire of my master, whose name I afterwards learned was Moisette. Moving on to the pampering, I have 4 colors here: red, black, goldish green, sparkly green, and purple. All colors to represent the dark supernatural spirit of Halloween. Which color would you like? Classic black. Very good choice. Okay, on with the story. All anxiety about my flock was removed, for the devil had undertaken to protect it and to keep off the wolves. This freedom from care, however, made me begin to tire of the devil's service, and I renounced my attendance at church till I was brought back into obedience to the evil one by Michael Verdung. When I renewed my contract on the understanding that I should be supplied with money, in a wood near Chasteau-Charnon, we met with many others whom I did not recognize. We danced, and each had in his or her hand a green taper with a blue flame. Still under the delusion that I should obtain money, Michael persuaded me to move with the greatest celerity. And in order to do this, after I had stripped myself, he smeared me with a salve, and I believed myself then to be transformed into a wolf. I was at first somewhat horrified at my 4 wolves' feet, and the fur with which I was covered all at once. But I found that I could now travel with the speed of the wind. This could not have taken place without the help of our powerful master, who was present during our excursion. Though I did not perceive him till I had recovered my human form, Michael did the same as myself. When we had been 1 or 2 hours in this condition of metamorphosis, Michael smeared us again, and quick as we thought, resumed our human forms. The salve was given us by our masters. To me, it was given by Moisette, to Michael by his own master, Guillemin. Pierre declared that he felt no exhaustion after his excursions, though the judge inquired, particularly whether he left that frustration after his unusual exertion. Now I thought I'd brush your hair, if that's okay. And on with the story, of course. Which is usually complained. Indeed, the exhaustion consequent on a werewolf raid was so great that the lycanthrope was often confined to his bed for days, and could hardly move hand or foot, much in the same way as the Berster Kerr and Hammermere in the north were utterly frustrated after their fit and had left them. In one of his werewolf runs, Pierre fell upon a boy of 6 or 7. with his teeth, intending to rend and devour him. But the lad screamed so loud that he was obliged to beat a retreat to his clothes and smear himself again in order to recover. He and Michael, however, one day tore to pieces a woman as she was gathering peas, and M. de Chesnay, who came to her rescue, was attacked by them and killed. On another occasion, they fell upon a little girl of 4 years old and ate her up, with the exception of one arm. Brutal, huh? Michael thought the flesh most delicious. Another girl was strangled by them, and her blood leapt up. A third, they ate merely a portion of the stomach. One evening at dusk, Pierre leaped over a garden wall and came upon a little maiden of 9 years old, engaged upon the weeding of the garden beds. She fell on her knees and entreated Pierre to spare her, but he snapped the neck and left her a corpse, lying among her flowers. On this occasion he does not seem to have been in his wolf shape. He fell upon a goat which he found in the field of Pierre Lugan and bit it in the throat, but he killed it with a knife. Michael was transformed in his clothes into a wolf, but Pierre was obliged to strip, and the metamorphosis could not take place with him unless he were stark naked. He was unable to account for the manner to which the hair vanished when he recovered his natural condition. The statements of Pierre Bergot were fully corroborated by Michael Verdung. Case 2. Giles Garner, The Hermit of Esponnет, 1573. Towards the close of the autumn of 1573, the peasants of the neighborhood of Dole in French Comté were authorized by the court of Parliament at Dow to hunt down the werewolves which infested the country. The authorization was as follows. According to the advertisement made to the Sovereign Court of Parliament at Dole, that in the territories of Espargnes, Sauvigny, Corchapon, and the neighboring villages, has often been seen and met for some time past. A werewolf who, it is said, has already seized and carried off several little children, so they have not been seen since. And since he has attacked and done injury in the country to some horsemen who kept him of only with great difficulty and danger to their lives, the said court, desiring to prevent any greater danger, has permitted and does permit those who are abiding or dwelling in the said places, and others notwithstanding all edicts concerning the chase, to assemble with pikes, halberts, arquebuses, and sticks, to chase and to pursue the said werewolf in every place where they may find or seize him, to tie and to kill without incurring any pains or penalties. Given at that meeting of the said court on the 13th day of the month September 1573. It was some time, however, before the loup-garou was caught. In a retired spot near a Magnus, half shrouded in trees, stood a small hovel of the rudest constructions. Its roof was of turf and its walls were blotched with lichen. The garden to this cot was run to waste, and the fence round it broken through, as the hovel was far from any road, and was only reached by a path over moorland, and through forests it was seldom visited, and the couple who lived in it were not such as would make many friends. The man, Giles Garner, was a sombre, ill-looking fellow, who walked in a stooping attitude, and whose pale face, livid complexion, and deep-set eyes, and a pair of coarse and bushy brows which met across the forehead, were sufficient to repel anyone from seeking his acquaintance. Giles seldom spoke, and when he did, it was in the broadest patios of his country. His long grey beard and retiring habits procured for him the name of the Hermit of St. Bonnet, though no one for a moment attributed to him any extraordinary amount of sanctity. The hermit does not seem to have been suspected for some time, but one day, as some of the peasants of Chastenoy were returning home from their work through the forest, the screams of a child and the deep baying of a wolf attracted their notice, and on running in the direction whence the cries sounded, they found a little girl defending herself against a monstrous creature which was attacking her tooth and nail, and had already wounded her severely in 5 places. As the peasants came up, the creature fled on all 4s into the gloom of the thicket. It was so dark that it could not be identified with certainty, and while some affirmed that it was a wolf, others thought they had recognized the features of the hermit. This took place on the 8th of November. On the 14th, a little boy of 10 years old was missing, who had been last seen at a short distance from the gates of Doyle. The hermit of Bonnet was now seized and brought to trial at Doyle, and the following evidence was extracted from him and his wife, and substantiated in many particulars by witnesses. On the last day, Michael Moss, under the form of a wolf, had a mile from Doyle, in the form of George, a vineyard belonging to the Chastenoy, near the wood of Lasserre, Giles Gamier had attacked a little maiden of 10 or 12 years old, and had slain her with his teeth and claws. He had then drawn her into the wood, stripped her, gnawed the flesh from her legs and arms, and had enjoyed his meal so much that, inspired with conjugal affection, he had brought some of the flesh home for his wife, Apolline. "8 days after the feast of All Saints, again in the form of a werewolf, he had seized another girl near the meadowland of La Poupée, on the territory of Bethune and Chastemouin. He was on the point of slaying and devouring her when 3 persons came up, and he was compelled to escape. On the 14th day after All Saints, also as a wolf, he had attacked a boy of 10 years old, a mile from Dole, between Credicens and Menon, and had strangled him. On that occasion he had eaten all the flesh off his legs and arms, and had also devoured a great part of the belly. One of the legs he had rent completely from the trunk with his fangs. On the Friday before the last feast of S. Bartholomew, he had seized a boy of 12 or 13 under a large pear tree near the wood of the village of Perouse, and had drawn him into the thicket and killed him, intending to eat him as he had eaten the other children. But the approach of men hindered him from fulfilling his intention. The boy was, however, quite dead, and the men who came up declared that Giles appeared as a man and not as a wolf. The hermit of S. Bonnet was sentenced to be dragged to the place of public execution, and there to be burned alive, a sentence which was rigorously carried out. In this instance, the poor maniac fully believed that actual transformation into a wolf took place. He was apparently perfectly reasonable on other points, and quite conscious of the acts he had committed. So, my friends, that is all I have for you today. I hope you didn't get too scared or upset. Maybe even learned a thing or two. In any case, good night. Sleep tight. And don't let the werewolves bite.